So I haven't told you this crazy wren story that I grew up with, which is that my parents really liked Irish folk music. And there's this group called the Clancy Brothers.
Okay.
And they have this song called the Wren Song. And they used to do it as kids. They would go out and they would actually, with a stick, and track down a winter wren in the outskirts of wherever they were living and kill it. And then put it in a wreath and go around on Christmas Day, like asking for money for the funeral.
Are you serious? That's weird. Is that an Irish folk thing?
Yep.
Wow. That is so interesting.
St. Stephen's Day is what it was.
That's so bizarre.
That is crazy.
I was thinking about that the whole time we were talking about.
Maybe that's what Rebecca is going to do with her.
Yeah.
Carolina
we should give her that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's a
so
good
bizarre.
story, John. That is so weird. So weird.
I didn't think of the Clancy brothers being that twisted.
It's one of those things where I'm not sure, I listened to it over and over again, and I'm not sure how many times I had to listen to it before it finally dawned on me what was actually
what they were saying. Yeah. That is insane. Wait, so in the song, did they say, like, we killed a wren?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's weird. I like folk music, but that's a bridge too far.
They start out with something that's like, children can be very cruel,
Jeez.
I don't know.
That's an understatement.
If they made a specimen of it, I might feel a little differently.
Yeah,
there you
exactly.
go.
There's a fine
That's
line
hilarious.
between cruel and psychopathic, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And anybody who thinks that happens routinely has jumped the line.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Although I did take dead things home and took their bodies apart at the picnic table in our backyard when I was a kid. So I didn't kill them, though, but I wasn't unhappy to see a dead squirrel on the road, for example.
Yeah.
And you weren't going door to door to look for money for the funeral.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was hiding because people would have thought I was weirder than they already did think I was.
Yeah. Like a witch or something. Yeah.
Well, my mom tells me now I'm an episode of Criminal Minds. It's just that show didn't exist.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
That show didn't exist when I was little, or I would have been labeled a lot earlier.
Yeah. Too funny.
That's crazy.
Well, are you guys excited to talk about Chimney Swifts?
Let's talk Chimney Swifts.
Yeah. I'm super excited for this. I definitely see them around, and there's some that are near where Amanda and I live, but I had no idea how cool they were until really doing the deep dive for the episode. So I'm excited for this.
Me too.
Yeah. I didn't realize just how aerial they are, how basically they never land. And then
Unless they're going into a chimney, which is a neat story because that's a huge transition in the whole population for the most part, where they had to have been across eastern North America nesting in trees before the first Europeans got here and started building chimneys.
Although I have to, this isn't not safe for little kids, but the one thing I learned from it I didn't know was that most swifts mate on the wing. So they're copulating while they're flying, but not chimney swifts. They have adapted their behavior to actually copulate in the chimneys now. And I don't know if they always did that or, but anyways, that's what they do now. So there you go. That's the too much
Classy.
information aspect of this. Don't ask me why that struck me as so interesting, but it did.
one of the few things they'll stop flying for.
Yeah, exactly.
It is interesting because it goes to the idea of behavioral flexibility and what can cause evolutionary changes in populations. So, if there were no chimneys and they were just going to start nesting back in trees, would they stop actually copulating in the tree itself and have enough behavioral flexibility to do that again while they're flying? And that's this question we had about noise is what made me think of this, noise pollution in birds, which we'll talk about sometime in the next few episodes. But it really made me think about that because birds can be adaptive, they can change and then go back if the need to change goes away. But if there's selection that starts operating, then that could be turned into a permanent change, right, in the behavior. And so thank you to listeners for making me think about the world in a new way.
So they will mate on the wing sometimes then? And it's
Well, I
just they've
don't know.
adapted now to only do, oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they had to have either mated within the tree or on the wing before. Other swifts mate on the wing. So what came, I mean, are chimney swifts semi more successful because they have that behavioral flexibility that they could do that? Maybe they obviously didn't do that before chimneys. They didn't they didn't mate in chimneys before there were chimneys. But so, that behavioral flexibility could be something that is an important aspect of success, but an important thing that could destroy success if the environment changed. So behavioral flexibility and canalization, I think, are really interesting things to think about in this context.
Shannon, is that flexibility within an individual's lifetime, or is that generation?
Well, that's a good
next generation.
I mean, certainly at the beginning, it started within an individual's lifetime, right? Because if they didn't do that and they do that, that's individuals having enough flexibility to do that. But if you are selecting for that, if that's beneficial and you end up selecting for it, then the individuals who do that are, their genes go into the next generation, such as that behavioral flexibility could go away. Doesn't have to, but it could. And so we rely on some kinds of natural experiments to know. So if you took down all the chimneys in North America, what would happen to the swifts? Can they change? There probably aren't enough trees to let them, their populations would probably crash. Not enough big trees, old growth trees anymore to enable them to live their lives without that. Maybe. I don't know.
It's an interesting question. I mean, they have one of the more fascinating maps of if you look at the Birds of the World webpage, and you look at the detailed map that Cornell puts together for them, it's actually basically the cities and small towns across Eastern North America for their distribution, which that's really striking. I mean, you wouldn't see that for robin, for instance. I mean, robin are basically continuously distributed. And in spite of the fact that chimney swifts are completely adapted to go up in the air and can go anywhere, they actually congregate because of the nest sites and roost sites in these urban areas now.
And they did spread west as people built buildings, as industrialization went on and people started building things, from the east to the west. The swifts moved too, such that they now interact with, their sister species in the western part of the U.S.
Yep.
Fox's swift. So cool. I don't know.
So from a comparative basis, one of the birds that we've talked about before that is somewhat similar in multiple ways is purple martin.
Oh, how they rely on people and
right.
Yeah. So do chimney swifts still nest in trees at all, or is it just basically only in man-made structures?
There's occasional observations. For instance, pileated woodpecker nest holes have been used by chimney swifts apparently.
Okay.
But it's literally a tiny percentage of the population, probably.
Okay. Wow.
And it's just because there's so many chimneys available.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't believe just how immobile they are once they land. I didn't realize that until we started researching, and it's like a bat. It's kind of what it reminded me of. They can land on the wall, but they don't perch ever. I mean, they basically are stuck to the wall by by their feet or by claws almost, right?
But if you look at their feet are pathetic. So
well, no, wait. So they're tarsi and are really short.
Yeah.
Their feet sometimes can actually be pretty big because as they get some of the bigger species, they have to be able to hold themselves up in the places that they're landing. And so they can have kind of surprisingly sort of bigger feet sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
And their tails do have that characteristic of things like woodpeckers, where the central part of their tail feathers is thickened, and in this case, it's longer than the vein part. So the thing that looks like the normal part of the feather, but which gives them your characteristic ability to ID them when they're up in the air. because that tail, the body shape and the tail are really characteristic of them. They're described as cigars with wings, which is the first thing someone told me when I was trying to understand what the heck was in the air flying around, which almost certainly would have been in Louisiana because I'd never even heard of them before I moved to Louisiana. Didn't even know they existed, and I'd certainly never seen one before.
But coming back to what Shannon was saying regarding the legs and feet, the order is called Apodiformes, which means without feet.
Oh.
Wow.
And that's because they are really reduced in that sense.
Wait, isn't there another bird that we talked about that was described at one point as not having feet? And I'm trying to remember.
Paradise.
Well, oh, that's what it was.
Okay.
That's funny.
I mean, these birds were enigmatic enough that they were classified in Hirundo, so the same genus that swallows are in, for quite a while, a lot longer than I would have thought before, it was realized that. And the whole pelagica part I find interesting. So their scientific name is Curators pelagica. And you wouldn't think, pelagica? What the heck is that? They're not flying over the ocean like pelagic birds or anything like that. But that pelagica is an ancient Greek word. It means like open seas. So I guess just the open air made people thought of that. I don't know. And I
wonder if they're fairly regular out in Bermuda. I wonder if the first specimens came from birds that were migrating.
And the Chaitura part means, long flowy tail, long flowing hair, the carta part, and the aura part means tails. So the bristle tail thing is directly in part of their scientific name, their genus name. But so I find it really interesting to think about them being classified as swallows because they behave an awful lot like some swallows do. They dip down into the water to clean. They don't preen themselves the way you think of birds, like touching their feathers, their beaks. Their beaks are, if you think their feet aren't so great sometimes, their beaks are like basically non-existent.
Okay.
They're very thin and flimsy and wispy. So basically they just open their mouths and fly around to catch insects in it. They're not manipulating food really, not very much anyways, manipulating food with their beaks. And so their beaks kind of show that, the fact that their beaks aren't that significant anymore, but the gape is what matters. So increasing the surface area for insects to fly into their faces is what matters. But that whole lifestyle, though, is also what leads them to be vulnerable to insect control practices, too. So, there are a lot of discussion of insect apocalypses, which has been well documented in some places. And obviously, if you're a bird like that, with the overuse of things like DDT or other insecticides can really influence your ability to get food or make you have to work a lot harder, which increases stress on individuals, increases stress hormones, and has an effect on the health of individuals and therefore their fitness and reproductive health. So these things are so connected in a way you don't think about. So there is DDT in the eggs of these birds. Coming from.
They've actually looked at if in places where they nest, excrement will build up below it, and they've analyzed that over the course of like 40 years of data for that, and they were able to show that DDT levels definitely went up during the period of the late 60s and into the 70s.
Okay.
And then there were some really cool studies. I think these were done I'm not sure where these were done, but to show that in industrialized areas, the birds can fly higher because the thermals associated with the industrial things make the insects go up higher. So they can take advantage of thermals that are created by the man-made industrial structures, and they fly higher. Which puts different insects in their play. Depending on which part of the air column you fly in, there are different insects in those bands. Cool. So you can, change what you can feed.
So to think about what's going on currently around us, as you guys know, it's been horrible with the smoke from the fires and things. And I was out this morning, and the chimney swifts were much lower than they normally are.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I think that's probably because the prey items are also not getting up into the air column.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not good when the weather reports tell you it's actually dangerous to breathe outside. Not just that you shouldn't go outside, that you might not if you have a asthma or a breathing problem, but when you've gone into past the purple range, which we went into for a little while, I didn't know you could go past red, but use purple, which is super bad. And then you go into this, I don't know, burgundy kind of deep purple brown color that means like, get the heck inside, put your air filters on, and do not breathe outside. Like, all right, okay. And that's kind of what it's been. I can feel I have a really raspy throat over the last week or so, and I'm positive it's from breathing too much. And we changed the air filter in our air conditioning system a couple days ago, and man, it was really, really, really clogged.
Oh, wow.
Do you guys have air filters in your apartment?
We do.
Yeah, we do. We have to talk to our landlord about getting them swapped out. Put that on his list.
So that's something that ornithologists are working on. I was hearing about a manuscript that's looking into the role of these fires potentially with affecting population numbers of birds. And one of the birds that was mentioned specifically was purple martin. I don't know whether chimney swifts are like that, but like chimney swifts, purple martins are going way up into the air column. And so, these smoky periods of time can be really difficult for birds like that potentially.
We were wondering, speaking of the fires, I feel maybe last summer or 2 summers ago, we had the same issue with Canadian wildfires. And it's been a serious issue where, like Shannon's talking about, where it's dangerous to go outside. And RJ and I both grew up in the Chicago area, never remember this happening.
No.
What's going on now that this is becoming like a regular thing for Chicago?
It's basically long-term aspects of climate change hitting these boreal forests at the northern edge up in north central Canada. And those areas are drying out, and then you get lightning strikes. It's amazing if you look into it. There are almost no roads and very few people up in these areas. And so there's no way to fight the fires. And so they burn. And because of the dryness up there, they end up being much bigger. And at that point, they start putting up smoke that can become problematic at long distances.
They are fire adapted, right? These environments are not unaccustomed to fire. That's not the issue. The issue is the frequency of these bad storms with lightning strikes that are setting ablaze a much drier forest than they were before. So if we want to control these things, there are things that have to be done, which is that we have to stop changing the environment.
And tariffs aren't going to do it.
No, putting tariffs on Canadians aren't going to do it. I mean, right now, sending firefighters to Canada is going to help. But, these fires, not clear sometimes where these fires started anyways. These things, and look, we're pretty far really from these fires. And our environment has been miserable. And yesterday afternoon, it lifted a little bit for, maybe a couple of hours. There was actually sun in the sky that you could tell. And then it closed back off again. And now it's, gray. I think if you could get above this stuff, you would see the sky's actually blue. But, you couldn't even see Soldier Field from the Field Museum a couple of days ago.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
And that was true on the East Coast. I mean, Massachusetts and New York are having similar skies. So it's incredible how much area is affected. One thing people just don't know very much about is what the effects are for the birds.
Well, we know it's not good because, they have their maybe we can live for a relatively normal lifespan with lungs that are damaged. But if you're a bird, you can't. You don't have medical intervention to give you oxygen when you've damaged your lungs. And the same thing that happens to our lungs is going to happen to birds, except it's so much more significant because of the way they exchange air, not just in their lungs. There's air sacs that go into their bones. So it's influencing a lot of the physiology and functioning of a bird to have air that's this full of particulate matter, not to mention the long-term cancer and other kinds of autoimmune disorders that come from your immune systems being challenged like this, or from the long-term effect of cortisol and too many stress hormones coursing through your body. So these aren't things to be trivialized, and things that used to happen every 1,000 years are now happening, 3 times a year. Look at the flooding. Look at what's happening in northern Arizona. I mean, not northern Arizona, but in the Phoenix area in Scottsdale, where there's like absolute torrential flooding because of some of the rainstorms that are happening. Parts of Texas completely, they look like they're having biblical floods every, 2 years now. So these are serious alterations to human landscapes, and then human health, let alone the environmental health too. So we cannot be separate. You can't make an air conditioner good enough to stop the effects of forest fires happening this fast. You can't build houses that'll ameliorate the effects of these floods. Good luck keeping insects that want to spread bad diseases from getting you when you're in that. I mean, we're in a place where we're not supposed to eat leafy greens because of a disease that, when we take care of the environment and take care of health food supplies and don't fire all the people for government agencies who track these things and care for these things and educate and inform and solve these problems. This is what you get. The government was at least full of experts, like really serious, important experts who sacrificed financial gain for the greater good of serving the people of this country, and therefore the people of the world, because so much of what the U.S. does gets spread. You can't just fire people willy-nilly and just you cross your fingers and hope that screwworm doesn't get in, and that you fire all the people who used to study these kinds of foodborne illnesses, and you think there won't be any more foodborne illnesses. You just, cross your fingers while rich people get super, super, super rich and, think they can buy their way out of these environmental things. Well, there's no Mars. Sorry, Elon Musk at all. There's no backup planet. And you can dream all you want about creating some kind of uber strange set of people that can live somewhere else. Well, it's not going to happen. And so putting your minds and all of that intelligence and all of that wealth and power to making the world better, you make it better for people, we're going to make it better for all of the plants and animals that live on Earth too. Now I'm on a diatribe. I should stop.
Yeah, let's if we circle back to this bird, the other thing I wanted to point out is they only spend half the year in North America.
Yeah, so what do they do down in South America? There
Who knows?
So many chimneys down there.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, because to this day, this entire population of millions of birds migrates fairly quickly all the way down into the Amazon basin, and then to a large extent disappears.
Wow.
Or at least it's not clear where the big numbers of them are.
Oh, wow.
And that to me is absolutely mind-boggling. There's banding returns where they've caught birds in the Amazon basin over the years. And so they know that the Western Amazon seems to be important, but like that, we're talking a handful of birds as opposed to the entire population.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
That's amazing.
And then as I was looking at it, I was fascinated by the other thing about this is, with migrant birds, they often have these migration routes, and some of them some parts of the population go to the West Indies, some go down the coast of Mexico, eastern or western, and with chimney swifts, it feels like there isn't a lot of data on how they do it, except that there are almost no records for the West Indies.
Okay.
And so somehow that population is probably moving fairly fast down to their wintering grounds, where they're going to spend, several months. So at least half the year. So coming back to what Shannon was saying, I mean, as you look at this, all these migrant birds have to deal with changing situations in two different parts of the world for their for their success over time.
And in the environments they travel to get from point A to point B, too. And then there's the other, I'm fascinated by what we don't know about this bird, too. The fact that a population that big can go all en masse to one place, and then we know almost nothing about what it does. There's almost no site records.
Right.
There's nothing known. What does it eat? Who knows? But in this site in Ontario, this study I found in Ontario, they were actually looking at the effects of insect management programs to show that not just that they're changing their diet because of insect management. So they're lowering, there's fewer beetles in the diet now than there was 40 years ago. And there's more true bugs or hemiptera in their diets now. So we have permanently changed, well, I don't know about permanent, but we have consistently changed the diet based on insect control practices. So, that kind of stuff can scale, and then it can scale and have an effect on the numbers and ways of breeding of the insects too, because all these things are connected. So to me, that's really interesting.
I wanted to bring up the nests that they make too, because
Yeah.
it's an awesome thing. And that was one thing during COVID. I used to go out and sit on our front porch, and I was watching these chimney swifts come in, and we have an elm that has dead branches. And I suddenly realized that they were actually, I thought they were coming in to kind of forage off of maybe insects that were on the edges of these branches, but they were actually breaking off sticks for their nests.
Oh,
Like
wow.
mid-flight, they do that?
Mid-flight. They come in
Wow.
mid-flight and with their mouth break off a little stick and then take it back. And the nest is basically glued with saliva to the side of the chimney. And we can put up a picture because we have a nest that I've taken pictures of in the past in the bird hall at the Field Museum. And it's just, the sticks are actually pretty big.
Mm.
Oh, wow. I
Is
was so
there
curious,
other-
go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, no, you go ahead, RJ.
I was just curious, because they hang basically, how do they even start? I mean, it's like they're on the side of a wall and they're hanging. It's not like they're up above and can wedge things in. How do they, just the initial start to make the nest? I feel like that's got to be so challenging. It's fascinating
sure.
that they can. Mhm.
And you're pointing out another thing which has been challenging for researchers to actually try to observe.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
From inside the chimney. What's
Yeah.
special about their saliva because can other birds do this type of thing?
They do.
Well,
Other birds do use saliva.
Okay.
We should talk about the birds that are part of bird nest soup sometime. We should do there's a whole bunch of episodes. We should talk about that in more detail about the effects again of humans on some
Okay.
swifts. So bird nest soup is swift nest.
Those are swifts from Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Mm.
That are so anyways, but we don't have to talk about that now. But yeah, saliva is important. So, you're drinking saliva if you're eating a bird's nest soup bowl, which
Oh.
you shouldn't do anyway. But
Wait, so I'm unfamiliar with this soup. Is it actually made with a bird nest?
yes, it is.
Okay.
And the bird's
So
common name is edible nest swiftlet.
Yeah.
My gosh. What a name.
Yeah.
Edible nest. Okay.
Yeah. And people like us have DNA tested things that come from Asian markets and Asian stores to prove that it is actually, we've done this, to prove that it's an actual, thing you're not supposed to have in the stores.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
crazy.
So it's been imported illegally. And every once in a while, Fish and Wildlife will bring things to the museum and say, can you tell us what it is?
Mhm.
And, using DNA technologies, we can actually tell them what it is.
Okay.
Doesn't take too much work to tell them what it is for the most part.
Wow.
I mean, the nice thing there is it's a renewable resource.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so one of the things they've figured out that they can do, because these swifts nest colonially, is they can actually build structures that the swifts will use, and then they can go in and harvest them actually.
That's
Oh. Okay.
harvest the nests.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of like when we talked about the eiders
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit.
Is there some like folklore that the nest brings you some crazy fertility or what are all those things that people believe in?
when we do an episode on that, we can talk about that in more detail.
Okay.
But
I love that stuff.
That's hilarious.
I mean, who was the first person who started that? I mean, what a racket.
Right. Yeah, seriously.
Bill of goods you sold to all the people around.
Good.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Are you kidding me?
So, because they're eating just like a bunch of sticks held together by saliva then?
So I actually think
with
the edible
bird
nest
poop and potentially insects and other things that are in the nests. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah. Even better.
No way. Not happening.
Wait, have either of you had that?
I've never had a chance, and
I'm pretty eclectic with what I'll eat, but that's like not just a bridge, but like a continent too far for me. I'm not not doing
that's
that.
up there with chicken feet for me. I just like there's something about chicken feet that
there's a lot of work for chicken feet, I think. But hey, Joan, did you know this? I didn't know that when they're bothered at the nest, they make these booms by slapping their wings against their bodies. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I did not. And yeah, I mean, I just, anything that has a nest is eventually going to have the potential to have some sort of predation pressure. And so, yeah, I wonder whether it works.
I don't know. I wonder what their neighbors think of that. It's like, hey, Bill, be quiet. We're stuck in a small place. I'm not bugging you. What is your problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things. They don't seem to have a ton of nests in the same chimney, which is also an interesting thing because
they do have strong site fidelity, though, apparently. And that's what the reports say. So, I mean, I guess if you're born in a place that is a nice chimney, you're going to pay attention to where that is so you can come back and find it. But
yeah, and so chimney swifts are only found in eastern North America. Their sister in the western U.S., I guess, is I wouldn't have said it was entirely as tied to urban structures or human structures as other swifts. Or as chimney swifts, but there are other swifts all over the old world, all over Europe and Asia and Africa, where they also nest around humans. So they've clearly benefited by human structures in this case for nest sites.
Okay.
And probably because there is less predation.
Yeah, and then they're vulnerable. Doing that makes them vulnerable to changing land use practices and changing building use practices too.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how many places are built with chimneys these days.
Yeah.
Not very many.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting kind of close on time. Is there anything else on Chimney Swift before I've got a mailbag question?
I have one thing. Apparently Audubon called it chimney swallow. That's how long they were thought of as swallows, was well into Audubon period before people figured out that, they're swifts. Swifts were related to hummingbirds, and now we know swifts and hummingbirds are nested within something called caprimulgiforms and near owlet nightjars. So, yeah, so there's so much enigma associated with them, which I think when you look at them, you see, I mean, is it a swift? Is it a swallow? What is it? They behave really similarly.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
What's in the mailbag?
All right. So this is from Rebecca, who wrote us about the Carolina wrens. She had a follow-up. So she emailed and said, and so if you haven't listened to our Carolina wren episode, go and listen to that. It was a question from Rebecca from Durham, North Carolina. But Rebecca wrote back after the episode and said, "Hi all. Thanks so much for honoring my request of addressing the Carolina wren. Did you convince me to like them? Well, it's looking like the Carolina wren might just be what the mourning dove is to Shannon. I did pass the episode along to a few of my neighbors who have also complained about the wrens. Maybe one of them can be convinced to see the cuteness of the wren over its noises. And far too early this morning, when the wren was loudly singing outside my window, I thought to myself, I have helped create a great habitat that makes birds happy. Then I thought, I wonder if John and Shannon need a Carolina wren specimen for the museum and someone can come get this one. And then she said, joking, sort of.
Yeah, Rebecca.
See, I took this sort of to heart, and I went and looked at our collection. And, the interesting thing, we talked about this with Carolina wren, they're a non-migratory bird. In other words, they expand their distribution, but they don't migrate. And what that means is if you look at our collection, given the amount of salvage we do, they're not going to hit the windows along the lakefront the way all these migrants would. So in our collection, we've probably added about 6 birds six Carolina wrens in the past 20 years, in spite of the fact that they're regular in the state of Illinois. We're just, you're not going to get very many Carolina wrens just coming in from the salvaging that's being done.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
She may they must be really super good at avoiding windows too, because they nest, they are so close to people a lot of the time, as she knows well, much to her sleepless dismay. But they're not hitting windows. Like, not just in migration, which obviously they don't do, but they're not generally hitting windows. So they've got to be a lot smarter than a house sparrow and a mourning dove, which do smash into windows pretty frequently.
I don't think that's going to help her opinion of them, but
no, but it helps me because it makes them smarter than you would think too. So they're not just cute and adorable. They have to be pretty darn savvy to avoid windows. Sorry, Rebecca.
I just like that she said she looked out her window and thought, I've helped create a great habitat that makes birds happy. So although we didn't convince her to like Carolina wrens, we did get her to look at her backyard and her neighborhood in a different way. And I think that's important.
Awesome on her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Now she should get a big chimney for Chimney Swifts.
Yes.
Yeah. Step 2.
They don't sing in the middle of the night.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.